What's up? It's Dave. It's Duncan back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Chicago-based band REZN. The band's new album, Burden, will be released on June 14th via Sargent House. So, since their inception, REZN have mined the stark, monochromatic depths of underground metal and fused them with the kaleidoscopic delights of psychedelia, prog rock, and shoegaze. With their latest album, Burden, they plumb the deepest, bleakest trenches of their sound while retaining a lifeline into the cosmos. Burden was recorded simultaneously with their previous album, Solace, back in July 2021. At Earth Analog Studios in Tolono by Matt Russell. Rather than release a double album, REZN divided the material into two separate records, each with its own distinct emotional timbre. Whereas Solace was meant to uplift and create a sense of narcotic dreaminess, Burden skews towards the themes of delirium, claustrophobia, and misery.
I'll tell you right now, what a record label loves is a band saying we have two albums recorded and we're not putting them out together. A label is like, yes.
Fuck
They
yeah.
fucking hate when a band's like that. We have 20 songs and we're doing a double album. They're like, why? There's only so many singles we can release. I mean, what are you doing to us here, guys?
Mm-hmm.
So, well done.
Clever. Musically, Burden favours riffs over atmosphere, percussion over ether, dissonance over beauty, but there is still an undeniable cohesion between it and its predecessor. The marriage of brute force and sublime textures has always been a key tactic in REZN's approach, a duality that may explain their touring history with fellow synesthesia inducing metallurgists Elder and Russian circles. But the spectrum of the band's mercurial temperaments has never felt as clearly defined and fully explored as it does on Burden. The album was recorded, engineered, mixed, produced, and reduced by Matt Russell at Earth Analog, then mastered by Zach Weeks at God City Studio. Okay. So,
You're right there.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, okay. Here we go. So these guys have been on the go since about 2016, have been pretty consistent when it comes to releasing albums every year or two. Burden will be album 6, but they've also done collaboration albums on top of that, plus live albums in between the last 3 releases. So yes, the label are loving this band right now. All the releases.
Got any more of those REZN albums? I think, guys, our PR team are saying it'd be really great if there was something we could release next month. What are you up to?
Just so happens, got a wee album in my back pocket. Here you go. So I remember hearing Solace back in 2023. And quite enjoying the vibe on that album. I didn't realise at the time that it was actually recorded at the same time as this album, and that the two would be kind of linked in some way. So it instantly kind of added a bit of intrigue to this release and how it would sound in comparison to Solace. If the artwork was anything to go by, this one was definitely looking like it was going to be more intense. Solace was the kind of the peak of mountains with a bit of snow, bit of kind of light breaking through the sky, whereas Burden depicts the fiery depths at the foot of the mountain.
I bring you fire.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, as opening tracks go, they couldn't be kind of more different, to be honest. Solace, opened very minimal. There was lots of kind of like lush kind of reverb, clean guitars, and it was just this really kind of slow kind of build and kind of burn. Even like the kind of snare drum was like sounded like a tom. There was no like kind of snare on it. It was all very kind of relaxed and quite reserved. Burden has about 15 seconds of that calmness before the kind of band fully kick in and they charge ahead on Indigo. And it's a really fascinating opener. It's one of those tracks that kind of draws you in like bit by bit. It's got a weird kind of like hypnotic kind of feel to it. It's like it just it kind of hypnotizes you into kind of staying with it. It's kind of like, see when you fart in the shower and you have like nowhere to go, you know, and you're just stuck there. It's like that, but like unlike those moments, I quite enjoyed being in the middle of this, to be honest.
PR company is sending us nothing after this. Metal Epidemic. What did you think of the new REZN album? It's like farting in the shower. You just can't escape.
There's a press quote for you. It has this like kind of like sorry, I should really
such a like in terms of tone and sound of album, that description is so left field. It's man.
Yeah, I should have probably thought about that beforehand. It's got this kind of like slow kind of churning kind of heaviness to it, but in the background there's almost like this kind of drone like kind of noise. It kind of makes it feel very uneasy. I thought that opening track was a really good kind of tone setter as to like what to kind of expect stylistically on this, but also kind of at the same time making you aware that there's going to be some kind of left field stuff coming in as well. So you've got like some electronic drum parts on that first track. I was like, all right, okay, didn't hear that coming, but you know, it's kind of keeping you on your toes, and it is one of those tracks that kind of gets more and more under your skin on each kind of listen of it. However, as much as I liked the opening track, I felt like there are bigger and better songs kind of yet to come on this release. Tracks like Instinct, where they kind of push that heaviness a touch further. The guitar tone and those kind of heavy parts are just, you know, so kind of weighty sounding, reminding me of kind of like Torche a little bit, but even thicker sounding. But that track is also infused with like bits of synths and electronics, and surprisingly a hooky as fuck chorus on it as well. Not necessarily like uplifting and kind of happy chorus. It's got some quite kind of dark tones to it, but I really liked it. It was about 5.5 minutes long. I kind of felt like I could have gone another chorus on it, to be honest. I was like, hit me with that again. I'm like, no, 5.5 minutes, that's what you're getting. That's fine. Same with Bleak Patterns. Again, like really cool build up. It's got like a really old school, clean, kind of leady intro. It made me weirdly think of like 80s Metallica, but like when they weren't shite, you know what I mean? Like that kind of era.
The internet has just switched off this video. Thanks, Dave.
But again, it's very well thought out. Again, I mentioned earlier about the snare, and he uses it on this album as well. The drummer's called Patrick Dunn. He kind of switches off the snare on that track, and it's like more of a kind of like percussive tool in the build up, which is really cool. I think more bands should use that, to be honest. But when the chorus kicks, like when that actually drops in, it's huge, like massive chorus, reminded me a little bit of Mountaineer and the harmonies, which ain't never a bad thing. But it's got this like Monolord type heaviness to the main riff. It's the longest track, just under 7 minutes. But like not one point did I feel like it went on too long. You know, it didn't feel its length at all to me. And that's this kind of same with the album, to be honest. I didn't feel like this album dragged in at all. They've most definitely written this as a kind of whole piece, and the tracks work independently, but I do feel like you get the most from it when you listen to it as one. Very much like Solace was, the tracks are all kind of connected in some way. There's no real like break in the album, so it does flow incredibly well. An exception to that is maybe Black Patterns, which fades out and doesn't like merge continuously into the next track. But I'm assuming that's maybe it could be the flip on the vinyl, maybe inside too, possibly. I don't know.
Well, one way to find out, Dave, and your wallet right now is like, no, Dave, please let me have something in it.
Oh yeah. I think what I enjoyed about this the most is just the way REZN kind of keep you engaged in the album the whole time, and that's not easy in a genre like this, which is predominantly quite lethargic sounding. The way they use layers is really clever on this album, both in the guitar work and the kind of synths / electronics. It's another way of kind of keeping you hooked in, and it's one of those albums that on each listen to it you will pick out new things. There's so many details in this album. They sound very much like a band that tend to kind of build on their sound. like they most likely will start with like the kind of bare bones of a track and then build layers on top of layers, more guitars, more vocals and synths until they're kind of happy with it. Sometimes it's very dense with layers, like as I said, there's moments where you might not notice something on the first listen, but for that reason, there's a lot of kind of value in the re-listens to this album. I found that like I enjoyed it more and more on every listen to it. One thing that didn't really need like re-listens or picked out was the saxophone on track 6, Soft Prey.
I mean, if you're going to have the word soft in your title, you better be bringing some sax. Sexy 80s sax.
Oh, it is sexy. It is a sexy moment on the album. Very well placed, super smooth. Like
oh god, yeah.
Sax is very well played. Not overdone. I think they kind of nailed the length of its use, but it adds a really nice kind of tone change on the track, which, you know, it doesn't really change all that much musically on the track. The guitar kind of lick is very cyclical, like on that track. It's quite old timey. I had like almost like a remind me of like a kind of old western at times, but I liked it. It was more reserved on the album, so like that was kind of showing me they know like just when to kind of pull back for a little bit. And as I said, it's those layers that really kind of give you the icing on the cake on these tracks. Also sets up the final track, Chasm, which again, I got some kind of Monolord meets kind of floor type vibes on that track. It's very sludgy, with that kind of doomy undertone to it. Big, massive groove. And I like that they went heavier on the closing track. This album,
in the production right at the end. I mean, it's finality on that one. When that track finishes, you're like, no more songs.
Yeah.
We're done, right?
Yeah. I mean, the album is a great mix of like kind of soundscape music and big riffs, and that last track is all about the big riffs. It goes out on a bang, and very much like fits the artwork of those kind of like fiery depths. The way it goes out with that really like heavy distortion. I really enjoyed this, and it's actually a really good companion piece to Solace. Both very different in that kind of like light and dark kind of way, but also very connected in a lot of ways as well. These guys are great at taking you on a journey. I'm going to use the J word.
2 seconds, sorry.
Take a wee drink. That's very like evident on both albums. I think here's another one. The peaks and valleys on on this on this album are actually
livers like that. No more.
No more keywords. They're much bigger on this album, and I'm glad that they did that, because I think like if they'd gone like for just 7 tracks of pure heaviness, it wouldn't have had the same effect or the same result. I think you need those kind of intimate moments, and once again, even the vinyl is coloured in a way that shut your mouth. It reflects the tone of each album, so it's cool they're thinking of those things as well, that are, you know, colours that go with the kind of sound of the album.
I'll check that in the next time I come and visit you.
Sure. Finally, like, production on this album is fucking ace. Love the sound. Very natural tones. The instrumentation sounds very organic, and it's a production. It sounds great, both in those kind of like immersive moments, and also when it's going full force. Like, it covers the spectrum really well. I love the sound of the album. Absolutely loved it. Thoroughly enjoyed the album. They are playing in Glasgow in October, the end of October. They're supporting.
I am around in the end of October, so.
Oh, really? So supporting Russian Circles at Slay the 30th of October. So I'm extremely tempted to go and check that out.
Yeah, it's cool.
What did you think? What did you make of this album from REZN?
I have no context, right? So okay. For the band, if they are potentially watching this, I do apologise in advance. I don't read the press statement. I spend even less time reading anything at all when it's a stream, and I know that is out with your control, and that's where the PR sits, and that's just the way they've handled the album. I hate streams. Hate them. Hate having to rely on the internet, right? It just is right? So this is legitimately my first experience with REZN as a band, and there was a chap at the door, opened the door, and there was a band called REZN, and they were like that. Do you want to be best friends? And I was like, you know what? I want to be best friends. This is like catered to me. This is like, so, it's not only catered to me. This is my mindset right now. I've come out of like about 2 months of solid fucking listening to the new Four Stroke Baron album, which is like mind altering in terms of the synth work and the texture and tone. And then I slid into REZN, and REZN just continued that going. Like the synth sounds they use here, and the production that's utilised on this is almost akin to what Four Stroke Baron was doing, in that I was listening to this and I felt this kind of vintage era washing through me. It's in the reverb on the vocals. It's on the choice of the guitar pedals they're using to give them that kind of wah, 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 wah kind of effect they've got. It's the nuance in every single effect to every synth sound that they choose, whether it's like a kind of in the background, and it's prominent enough that you can, and we'll talk about the production because the production's fucking mind-blowing, but it's loud enough that you can pick it out, but it sits behind the band is like almost a background noise, which is prominence, which is almost oxymoronic when I think about it. Indigo floored me. Like by the end of Indigo, I was just sitting in a puddle of moan semen, just like this is what I want. Never will I compare this to farting in a shower. I wouldn't do that. Like what I'm going to compare this to seminal fluid dripping out me. The thing about this track, right, like Indigo for me, was that I had a handle on the production, and as the track continued going, it just unfolded more secrets. Specifically, by the time you get to about the 2-minute mark, the guitars kind of slip out and you get this fucking chunky bass, like huge chunky bass, which reminded me a little bit of Loathe. Like Loathe will be very happy to throw in those kind of shoegazy synths era kind of Deftones, but with like fucking thick as fuck bass. And that's like Indigo has that, but it's this dreamy kind of halcyon woozy sort of like vibe that just sits behind the sound. It's fucking amazing. So Indigo finished and I was like that. Well, I mean, it's up to the band now whether or not they fuck this album in the ass and it all falls apart. I'm happy to say that never happened here at all for me. Instinct is a track which is like maybe a little bit more conventionally sludgy sounding in its construction. I'm glad you mentioned Mountaineer. I also got a little bit of Flesh of the Stars in their sound, which I really enjoy. By the time you get to tracks like Bleak Patterns and Collapse, there's moments where the clean guitars are playing that reminded me very much of Flesh of the Stars, which is a band everyone should check out. These guys just like 44-piece are doing so much, and they have like a grasp of filling their sound without overfilling it. I'm, as a guy who's a connoisseur of synths, I'm an advocate for good using of them and bad using of them. And a lot of bands fall into the bad using of them where they're too loud in the mix, and this is coming from someone that plays synths. They're too loud in the mix, or they're used in a conventional way, or they're too buried in the mix and they don't actually add anything, or like, what is its purpose on this track? REZN never have that issue, ever, on any one song here. It's always, they change up the sounds, but they use them in clever ways. A lot of it, I think, is actually the guitar as well. It's guitar effects, which like are produced in a really interesting way. That kind of really chunky and almost compressed guitar tone, like it doesn't never really ever ring out. It just kind of reminded me a lot of Deadsy, actually, weirdly enough. Which, like, if you listen to, if you're a REZN fan, you listen to Deadsy. But if you ever come across Deadsy, their guitar tone is really detuned, but it's kind of jun. Like it's less like a guitar, more like a synth. And I think it's because they play a Z-tar or synth guitar. And there's a bit of that in here in terms of how heavy it sounds when it hits in. And I don't know if there's maybe a level of synth underneath it that's maybe giving it that kind of almost artificially sound. Fucking awesome though. Vocally, this is c'est magnifique. A little bit taprooty. Like just kind of sitting back and letting things go. Like his choice of melody reminded me a lot of Stephen Richards from Taproot, in that he goes kind of a wee bit grungy, but at the same time, very clean, very 90s alt. It's fucking awesome. It's produced in such a way as well that it's never at the front. It actually sits probably alongside the guitar, if not just a shade behind the guitar. But with that reverb on the effects, that kind of almost church hall kind of reverb that it has, it just flows over the top of this, just fucking washes over it in the most majestic and amazing way. I finished this the first time through and I was like that, fucking love this. Like, love this. This is what I've been needing this year. I've had almost every other itch scratched, except that kind of shoegazy, sludgy thing that exists out there that we love, that we keep like ranking really high. But I haven't really had that this year. And then REZN swings in, and now you're telling me that there was an album that was recorded at the same time that's a different shade of this, that I can go and check it, which makes me really excited. I love this. This is my jam this year. Just get like bands that are shoegaze is huge just now. The bands that use it right are the bands that elevate their sound and make it like 100 times more interesting. The bands that use it wrong are boring. The songs are long and they shouldn't be. REZN are kind of fucking awesome, man. Yeah, we'll get to the scores and a predictable pattern will swing out, no doubt. But yeah, this is fucking awesome. And now I know they're coming to Glasgow and we should go and see them. We should go and interview them. The band's chatting this out. We'd love to speak to you.
Yeah.
So, love to pick your brains and get into the nitty gritty. Unless you don't want to do that, you just want to talk about how amazing Scotland is, we can do that as well.
Okay, so scores for the band's new album, Burden. It's a high scorer for me. It's a 4.5 out of 5 for myself. I think this is actually a touch better than Solace for me. When I listened to them back to back, I kind of loved how vast this was dynamically. And those heavy parts are just like hypnotically heavy. But as I said, it works extremely well as a kind of companion piece to Solace. So if you can, check them out, both back to back. A great listen, both albums. What about yourself? What are you thinking?
5. I love this. Absolutely love this. Yeah. I'll come back to this loads this year.
Nice.
I will go and check out their previous album. Very excited to check it out. Yeah. I just want this year to continue being as exciting as it is. Like every second week I'm getting something where I'm just like if this year only had this album, I would be overjoyed. But there's so much fucking amazing music coming from all sides, from bands I have never heard of before, and it keeps delivering month on month. I think this is fucking excellent.
Nice. REZN, Burden, out June 14th on Sargent House. Links below to the band, to their Bandcamp for the pre-order. Check it out. Have a listen. See what you think. Let us know. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.